Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you are in the world, this is RadioWorks.World. Your host, Vadim Turcanu, with the show The Intelligent Migrant Man.
2,000 people on the dance floor, jumping up.
Today my guest is Rod Judkins, who I'm impressed about and who's changed and released my mind to creativity, and who's recently published a book about the same idea, and someone who I admire. And
thank you.
Yeah, so Rod, tell me what you're working on now, what you're doing currently.
Well, my latest book is called Ideas Are Your Only Currency, and it came out about a month ago, and so I'm sort of promoting that, and I'm giving a lot of talks. I'm giving a talk to in a gallery next week, and I've just done one to NHS Trust, which are kind of hospital trusts, and so a lot of people from the medical profession came along, and I did my I talked about the book, and I talked about the contents of the book, and I gave them some small exercises to do while I was talking, which kind of got them to think creatively. But I kind of think it shows how the fact that people in the medical profession were interested in it and asked me to speak to surgeons and doctors. It shows how creativity, they are starting to appreciate that creativity can help in all kinds of different fields in the medical profession or in banking or all kinds of different professions. So that's kind of why I wrote the book, because I teach here at Central St Martin's, and I'm used to teaching art students, and I want to kind of get get what we do out into a wider public, and I think creative thinking is useful in all kinds of different fields. And so at the moment I'm kind of giving all these talks on the book, and it's really good to meet, not just art students and people in the art world, but people from banking or scientists, and get a reaction from them, and so that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, it's good to. I think it's very good to realize that your subject. They realize how important it is. I think that's a very big part and very fulfilling.
Yeah, I mean they got me in. One of the hospitals that I've been teaching at recently is the Royal Free Hospital, and they have applied medical students, and they want those students to think more creatively rather than just learn about science and then apply it. In a hospital environment, there's all sorts of unpredictable things happen, and the patient might have might not have a textbook problem, and so the doctors and the people working in the hospital have to solve a problem that they may not have been taught to solve, and so they have to be creative thinkers. And a lot of the students struggle with that if they've had a very sort of standard education where they've been memorizing facts and then being tested to see if they remember those facts. But when in a hospital environment, there's always kind of things going on that you need to come up with a solution that you haven't been trained for, and so that's what I do there. I try and teach them techniques and methods so that they can think of an idea on the spot rather than
in a framework kind of
thing. So but it's really interesting for me to do a lot of the things that I'm used to do with art students, with science students, and science students tend to think in a slightly more linear way. And so it's interesting to try and break that up a bit, and I'm not trying to stop them thinking a scientific way, but I'm just trying to add something to them, add another kind of creative way of thinking. So I'm not trying to stop them being scientists or stop thinking scientifically, but just to add something. So
releasing them in a way. Releasing their mind.
I mean, I'm not trying to get them to think creatively all the time, but just there will be situations where it would be useful to them. And at the moment they struggle with it. So so it's good to go into that kind of environment and see what they can do. Well, I worked as an artist, and I started doing a little bit of teaching, and then my kind of method of teaching is to get students to think deeply about what they're doing and try and make them think in different ways and approach a problem from as many different perspectives as possible. And that way of teaching was kind of a different way of teaching, and a lot of people were interested in it, and it kind of grew and grew. And St. Martin's asked me to do workshops based on that way of thinking, and the workshops got a bit of reputation, and people started coming to them from all kinds of different fields of activity, from the art world, but also from lots of different kind of fields. And I try to teach kind of practical techniques and methods for ways to get ideas and ways to think about things, and so that it's not kind of, so that if a student wants to come up with an idea, they don't have to wait for inspiration. There are kind of things that they can do to try and get ideas. So that's kind of that's kind of how it came about, really. And then I try and put that into books, and then that spreads it even further, I think.
Well done, yeah, because well done to kind of translating it into a different, kind of perspective and put it into a book. That's a massive effort, and well done doing it.
It is quite hard because in a studio environment that there's things you can say and do,
yes.
And then to put that into a book format, I did have to think about how I'm going to make this work in a when it's just words on a page. So
I was actually thinking, how did you manage? I mean, okay, because I've been at your course, and I know exactly what the course is about, and like, bloody hell, how did Rod manage to do that, put that into a book, and what was the idea behind?
Yeah, it was very difficult because the first time I wrote it seemed a bit flat compared to the energy that there is on the course, and so I had to keep trying to think, rewrite things and try and get that energy, and just keep coming at things from different angles, and just to make it really entertaining, because I think the courses they're quite entertaining. The students chip in a lot of ideas, and a lot of it has to do with the feedback from other students and the energy in a room, and so I had to try and get that into a book somehow. So it was a bit of a struggle at first, but I did my best.
I mean, I was at the book launch.
Oh yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I enjoyed it actually, and I so much enjoyed about the. I mean, this is something like, it's quite simple, and like everything genius is simple. It must be simple, and I so enjoyed the idea of the book. Some of the prints from your book was on the table, and like a kind of buzzy, people like buzzing around them and like trying different things. You could see the book already in action, in a way.
That's the point of the book, really. So that it's not just a lot of words, but there are exercises
that's right,
to do. It engages people, and so.
That's why I'm your fan, man.
But the book launch, it was good to see all those ideas coming out, and everyone was looking at each other's ideas, and so it generates a lot of sort of interest like that.
What would you advise if someone would ask you how maybe ideas or practices or exercise, I don't know, whatever you think, like, to make someone already more creative just by implementing those 3 things? Is there any you could think of?
I mean, one of the things that I do with students is, say they're designing a book cover, I'll get them to do, say, 3 or 4 book covers, 3 or 4 versions of the same book cover. Mm-hmm. And then in that way they don't get sort of fixed on thinking that they've got to come up with one fantastic idea that's great and wonderful. They've got a few things they're working on, and sometimes something that starts off looking rather bad with a bit of work can grow into something. So I always get them to do, whatever projects, I try and get them to do 10 versions, or a lot of versions of the same thing, and then it frees them up because they know they're kind of working on something and they think
they can risk it with
this is just one, and if it doesn't work, then what the hell. So that's one way that I try and
that's so cool.
But I think a lot of it is like the environment and making people feel like on the course, like if you, I always set lots of projects, so they have to think of lots of ideas, and if you're doing having to come up with a lot of ideas, it's kind of inevitable that some of them are going to be really bad ideas. Not even a genius isn't going to come up with a great idea all the time.
Yes.
And so people get used to the fact that some of their ideas might not be great, and if they stick them up on the wall, it's not the end of the world. So that helps a lot, I think. That idea, that sort of feeling that you can come up with a bad idea and stick it up on the wall, and then sometimes somebody else will see something in it that is quite good and that can be improved and kind of worked on and brought out. So that's kind of what the book is about, really. It's about lots and lots of projects in it, so that by the end of it you should be used to thinking of lots of ideas. And it's a bit like you in your a judo school. It's you do lots and lots of exercises, and you just get used to it. And it's not like having a judo bout. Somebody for me would be frightening, but if you do a lot of it, it just becomes almost sort of natural. So that's why I try and always set lots and lots of projects, and there's lots of projects in the book, just so you get used to it, and it's not. It's kind of, it becomes natural to you.
Becomes natural, Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. What would you say is your superpower?
My superpower is probably getting other people to realise that I don't have a superpower, but they do. I think I'm quite good at kind of helping students to
have trust in themselves.
Sort of not look to me, but look to themselves. So
appreciate the ideas, what they come up with.
And kind of bring out their superpowers, I suppose. And I try and set projects which are kind of make them have to think, and are always like a problem that they have to try and solve. And I try and set projects which are kind of sort of designed so that you can't just come up with something that looks quite good. There has to be some kind of idea behind it, and so in that way I think it's a kind of challenge, but after a lot of challenges somebody starts to find out what they're good at and how they think and what they do that is special.
It's like something authentic to themselves in a way, isn't it? Like appreciating themselves as their own thing. You know what, as you just said it, I realized, I felt it at your course, when I was at your course, and actually I felt that in a way, and that's your real superpower.
Well, a lot of it is just like being in a group and sort of seeing what other talents that other people have. And
when you were young, perhaps, did you realize in yourself anything to hint that kind of group you, or that kind of thinking? Maybe there was something happened that prompted you to...
Not really. I mean, I think I came from a sort of creative family, so it's kind of natural. My brother was very arty, my mother was very artistic, so the house was full of paints and...
Messy.
All there was mess everywhere. And, we lived in the country, so we had lots of animals, and I don't know, it was just like a messy household, and people were doing what we were, as kids, we used to make puppet shows and things, and so it was like, I didn't really, now looking back on it, I think it was quite an unusual household, that there was so much.
It wasn't normal, like.
Even my dad was like an engineer, but he used to buy old Jaguars and put new engines in them, so that was kind of creative as well. He didn't just buy a car and drive it around, he bought an old car and then put a new engine in it.
Really? That's amazing.
So it's like everybody was doing something. But I didn't think much of it at the time, but now looking back, I can see it was probably
building up you are now in a way.
Yeah.
Can you name someone that influenced the most in your life? Who was the most influential person in your life? Anyone there?
I think I was kind of quite interested in Andy Warhol and the way that he kind of sort of accepted the culture that he was in and kind of saw the good in it, and he wasn't kind of critical of sort of American culture. He kind of embraced it and enjoyed it, and I think there's something very positive about that, and just the way that he, would do a painting of Coca-Cola, and he kind of really liked Coca-Cola, and he said it was sort of democratic, that the president couldn't buy a better can of Coke than you could, or a tramp, or
that's interesting.
A homeless person on the street.
Yeah.
So instead of being critical of big companies and things, he kind of embraced it and sort of went with the flow of it, and that's kind of quite an interesting way of thinking, and I think it sort of shows that you rather than always resisting what's going on in the culture, if you can we forget that Apple produce amazing things for us. People moan about them.
Yeah.
There's lots of things wrong with them maybe, but you forget that they enhance our lives enormously. And so someone like Andy Warhol, who kind of loved anything new, anything technological. So I kind of thought that's quite hard to do, but I think he was quite an influence, really.
Yeah, amazing. If you had a mic, and whatever you would say there, it would go to everyone's ear, or imagine every person in the globe. So whatever you say, every person in the globe could hear.
Yeah.
And you have, you can have two things to say. What would you say?
I think I wouldn't make a statement. I'd probably ask them a question like, if you're not doing what you want, what are you doing? And then they would have to think, what am I doing? Is this what I really want to be doing? Or am I doing something just to please somebody else? So I try and pose a question like that to them. So they have to kind of think, what am I doing and why am I doing this? And am I really doing something that I enjoy? Am I doing something that is fulfilling to me? So I'd pose them a question.
Cool.
That would make them think about whether they're doing what they really want to be doing, or whether they're doing it because of some influence on them. So that's what I would do.
That's cool. What does inspire you?
My students inspire me a lot. They're kind of younger, and that they kind of I find out a lot more about music and things that I wouldn't normally find out about through them. So my students inspire me. I don't know, being in London is quite inspirational, just like, and nothing in particular, just the atmosphere and just the things that you see, and there's a lot of people in London from all kinds of places like yourself, and so you get all different perspectives really, from different countries, and so London itself is quite an inspiration. Yeah.
If you were to meet someone, two people in the next 2 days, you have there is an apocalypse or something happening after 2 days, but then you want to meet two people, within 2 days, maybe one today, one tomorrow. Who would you like to meet? Anyone, maybe even history, or would you want to talk, have a chat with?
I'd quite like to meet a philosopher called Wittgenstein, who had some quite interesting ideas, and everything I read about him, he seems like a formidable person. People who met him talk about what a formidable person he was. So I'd just like to see if he was like that. But he was a very interesting thinker, and so I'd quite like to meet him. And he had quite an interesting teaching technique as well, which was that he never made a statement he always asked questions. So if a student was doing something, he would never say, that doesn't look right. He'd say, you know, do you think there's a better way of doing that? Or he never, everything he said was a question, so that was quite an interesting. So I'd like to meet him to see whether that was true or not. Who else? I'd like to meet Salvador Dali.
Oh man!
I'll go with you. Yeah, I mean, when you see these people, they're on television and they're kind of probably putting on an act.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what he was like in real life.
Yeah.
I imagine he was probably quite much quieter, but then when you see him on television or whatever. But yeah, I'd like to.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You know what? I've heard, you just reminded me about something.
When I talk about my book, I always start by talking about Picasso, and I talk about how he, if you look at it in the National Gallery...
Sorry, Dali, he was drawing Dali, wasn't he? He liked Joe Dali.
He liked to draw... he liked to draw quite classical things.
Classical things, yes.
But yeah, I talk about Picasso and how he... In the National Gallery here, there's one Picasso, and in the Tate there's two important Picassos, and they've got a few prints and things. But most art galleries in the world have one or two Picassos, and there's a lot of art galleries. And when you add that up, it might come to tens or hundreds of Picassos. But he produced 50,000 artworks in his lifetime, and most of them are in bank vaults in Paris. And we'll never get to see them. So we see like a tiny little, like 2%, 5% of what he actually produced. So I kind of use that as an example of how he produced masses of ideas, and most of them weren't very good. Most of the stuff one of my friends is a picture restorer, and his job is to go to Paris twice a year and look at the Picassos and see if they need restoring. Really? And I said to him, that must be amazing to look at all those Picassos. And he said, no, they're all crap. They're his rubbish. And you forget that he, by producing so many, he could just take the very best. But because he's done so many, that there are a lot of really good ones.
Yes.
If he'd only done 5,000, there would be less good ones. But so I kind of use that as an example of how. You've got to come up with lots and lots of work and lots of ideas, and then like someone like Thomas Edison, he was an inventor, and again a lot of his ideas were really terrible. Or they were good ideas, but he couldn't make them. So I kind of talk about Thomas Edison and some of his ideas and how they were good ideas, but they just couldn't make them work. But he had lots and lots, tens and tens and hundreds of ideas, and then he's famous for a few ones that did work. But that's kind of sort of the point of the book, really, is that you have to have lots and lots of ideas and become fluid in thinking of ideas, and then because you never know quite what's going to go down.
It's similar to Michael Jordan. He was saying, you see my 100 ideal hits, a day. But you don't know that I've done another 1,000, which I missed, So whenever you see me 100 a day, okay, maybe normal person would throw 100 a day, But I threw 1,000, so which I missed, So, What, in your opinion, what are the three things that are as a key for success?
I think kind of what we've just been saying, that energy. Really, I've never met anybody. I mean, at St. Martin's, you meet a lot of famous artists and a lot of musicians have come from here, and never met anybody who didn't have a lot of energy, or at least put a hell of a lot of hours into what they do. A lot of creative. They don't sort of work 9 to 5 and then at 5 o'clock stop and have their dinner. They're working on something. They work on it until it's resolved, and that might mean working on it all day and all night. And so I've never met anybody who was successful who didn't put a lot of energy into it. But that's not enough. You have to put a lot of thought into it as well. So energy and thinking, and always looking for something unusual. I think not doing. Most creative people are almost deliberately do the opposite of what everybody else is doing, just to see what happens. You know,
that's right.
Everyone's doing that, I'll do the opposite.
Yeah. Usually works.
Yeah, just to stand out, just to be awkward, but it does make you push you into a different, different sphere, I think. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so cool. I'm so happy to be here with you and talk about these things and see how you think. And there's so much interesting content that are coming from you just by sitting and having a chat. And when
I'm teaching at the Royal Free, for instance, like one of the projects I set is the medical students. I get them to think of to design a biological weapon. So instead of most of the things they do are very ethical, and they're trying to help people and make people better. So I set them they have to think of a biological weapon that's going to harm people, and then it makes them think differently. So they might be designing a virus, but they think differently about that virus, and they think about how it would get into the human body and how it would reproduce. But instead of just reading a textbook and learning from a textbook, they think about things from a different angle and a different perspective, and so it makes them think differently, really. So I try even when I'm setting the projects in the book, I'm trying to get people to think in the opposite way that they might normally think. Yeah,
what you just said now. Yeah, I remember those prints which I found like really so cool. If you remember the prints from your course, it was like a ring with the diamond inside, which is you can't see the diamond, and a number of these things are like completely so opposite. So it must be that you expect them to be that way, and then
Yeah, but I think if something is the opposite of what you expect, it's a surprise, and then so it has an effect on you, and you tend to remember it. And, so you have
which I remember, like it's been like 5 years or what is it? It's been like 5 years almost. I can't believe it. It is, and your course was in my mind, and I did recommend quite a few people your course, and I'm sure you've a few of my friends went to your course as well. Because I have I'm following you. I came to your book launch. I'm your fan, man. If you could get the money this year to buy anything, what would you buy?
Gosh.
I mean, you don't need to put it in a right way. Just whatever it is there, whatever you design for yourself.
It would depend. I mean, if I had a lot of money, then I'd probably like to buy an artwork by someone like Damien Hirst, or
Damien Hirst.
Yeah, there's been lots of times in my life when, especially when I was younger, when I had the opportunity to buy people like Damien Hirst when they were really cheap, and I didn't do it, and so I kind of like to go revisit that and get one of their works. But so an artwork by someone that I respect, Jeff Koons or Damien Hirst or someone.
Really? My friend has some collection of few of their work actually at home. He sells it. Wow. So I'll get you to we'll go together to his house and we'll look at
I can look at them.
We don't know, maybe something will come out. Let's see. But I promise that I'll take you to he's got a few things there. Why do you like artwork? Why is this important in your life?
I suppose it's a kind of representation of somebody's thinking, and it sort of shows you. It's like someone's thinking put into a physical form that you can kind of look at and analyse. And like we were talking about Andy Warhol, his work kind of shows his different way of thinking about things, and it shows his ideas but put into a format that you can kind of reminds you of his thinking. So it's kind of like someone's thinking but realised. But I think everything's like that. Really good design.
So cool.
Yeah, I mean the best design, best art kind of displays somebody's thinking, somebody's ideas. I think.
Yeah. This, I was just listening to an interview, and there was a guy was saying those arts, like the orange cube or something like that with a dot line. Who was the
Rothko.
Rothko. The simplicity and nothingness, emptiness of Rothko. Like just watching it and how impactful is that?
Somebody like him, I think he's trying to push something as far as it will go. Some of Picasso's late work was quite abstract, but it was always figurative, and so he and the abstract expressionists were always trying to push something a little bit further and seeing, if they made it even more abstract, what would happen. And but I think that's a way of thinking, always thinking, looking at what there is, and then thinking how far you can push it, and keep pushing and see where it goes.
So cool.
Yeah.
And what would you like to say to our listeners and viewers? What would you, if a couple of things, or one thing maybe?
I don't know. I would when I'm talking to my students, I've sort of come back to some of the things I've said really, which is to sort of ask yourself if you're doing what you want to be doing, and
cool.
Are you? I mean, we all have to make compromises sometimes, but most. I think you have to be creative with your life and make sure that you're not just doing things for the sake of it, and kind of keep thinking, is this what I really want to be doing, and am I really doing what I enjoy? And if you're not, then you have to try and find some way around that and be creative with your life and think about how you can change your life and think creatively about how you're living. So,
cool. How will our listeners and viewers find you if they want to find you? Find your book, find yourself. What do you do? Your course, maybe.
I've got a website. It's just Rod Judkins.
I'll share it in the notes there.
Yeah.
Share it with the viewers.
Or Facebook. They can contact me on Facebook, or my email address is just rodjudkins@hotmail.com, and my email address is in the book. And,
okay.
I'm quite easy to get hold of.
Thank you, Rod. I appreciate your time.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.